one, you're not using it correctly. Two, you're not fulfilling your duty to your client to actually make sure that the case law is real. I mean, it's the same as if you're just citing a proposition and you cite the wrong case. So you can't just blame the technology. Like, you have a responsibility. I don't just blindly copy things out of AI. And then most of the time too, like I edit it. And if I'm using it for research, I'm like, give me the web pages, exactly where you're finding this information. I'm going to go check it. I'm doing my due diligence with it, so I know how to use it.
Welcome to Legal Off The Leash, the podcast where we take the legal profession out of the box and into a happier and more fulfilling future.
We're your hosts, Scott Simmons and Elizabeth Stadler. On today's episode, we're talking AI and prompting with Laura Jeffords-Greenberg. Why your input determines the value of its output. Laura is the general counsel at Worksome, where she's building an AI-first legal function from scratch in public. She's been trying to fix how legal actually works for a while. In 2018, she proposed hiring an engineer onto the legal team. People thought she was joking. She wasn't. Since then, she built the product counsel function at Unity, then joined a legal AI startup Wordsmith as employee number 8, where she built their academy and trained over 3,000 legal professionals on how to actually use AI. She writes AI field notes from a GC, a free weekly newsletter read by in-house counsel around the world, trying to figure out what's real, what's hype, and what's worth their time. She's a California attorney based in Copenhagen, and she will tell you exactly what she thinks, sometimes before she's decided if that's a good idea. Laura, welcome to Legal Off The Leash.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So I need to disclose that I was traumatized by a previous recording that we did. I'm not going to mention the guest, but I want to ask you what he unfortunately answered. And that is, do you think AI is ever going to replace lawyers?
I mean, to a certain extent, yes. Not fully, but a lot of us will be replaced. I believe that.
What's still left for us?
What's still left for us? Strategic work is what everyone is saying. But I do think there's judgment, and I guess how I'm building the legal function is like, once a question is asked, then how do we automate that and put it into the knowledge base so then AI can use it to answer it? But you're always going to have novel questions that are going to need a human to put it together. Especially, we have new regulations coming out. So regulations are changing. Technology is changing. People are doing new and unique things that cause legal issues. There's always going to be novel issues for us to have to decide, and especially as in-house. AI is not that great at maybe taking in the whole context and looking at risk. So there are a lot of times where I'm like, yeah, we should do this to be 100% compliant. But if you look at like GDPR, is any company really 100% compliant with GDPR?
No companies.
So you need a human or a lawyer to help you figure out how can we get to as close as compliant as possible and document it. So a lot of that manual stuff that's repetitive, we'll get rid of that, but then it is where we need human judgment and expert. That area, I think, will stay for lawyers.
Thank fuck.
That's what I'm hoping. That's what I'm betting my career on.
I got to tell you, there was a very different answer from a previous guest. It has not left us.
What was the answer?
No, there's no future for lawyers.
Okay. I mean, maybe.
I think we asked what would his advice be to people starting out in the legal profession, and he said, "Don't."
Yeah, it was really quite something. Anyway, so Laura, I love seeing your content on LinkedIn because, as we said in the introduction, you're learning and you're doing all of this in public. And I think that's brilliant because it's teaching people just the reality of this journey, as opposed to sometimes what you just see on social media, which is, I did this and made £1 million in a day. You're actually taking people through the real substance of this. And I find it absolutely fascinating. How did your journey with AI start?
That's a good question. So I guess I grew up in Silicon Valley during the first tech boom. So I've just grown up with the latest and greatest technology around me. So then I started supporting technology companies as a lawyer. And then when I went to Unity, I was supporting the people who were building the Unity game engine. So the R&D team, engineering developers. from a legal point of view. And that's where you're looking at machine learning and AI from a substantive point of view. So I started there, and I guess, it was cool and I liked it, but it was not going to change how I did work. I was laid off by Unity, which is what led to me to start publishing more on LinkedIn for job security. And then during that time, I took an interim general counsel role at Worksome. And that's when ChatGPT came out. And when ChatGPT came out, I was like, large language models, work in language. I'm a lawyer. This is got to help us in some way. I worked on VR, cryptocurrency, blockchain, all of that. And I didn't see that transforming how we work. But once ChatGPT came out, I was like, this is going to change how lawyers work. And I want to figure out how. And then I was like, okay, I'm interim general counsel. How can I make myself more valuable and prove that I can do more with less? And luckily, the CEO was very supportive. And so even in the beginning, we sort of like just mess around with it together to see what was going on. And then I started writing about it. And again, that was more from okay, I need to protect my career in case I get laid off again because I work in tech. And then that accidentally sort of turned into a business. So a law firm came to me and said, hey, would you train our lawyers to use AI? And my first thought was like, that's the stupidest idea I've ever heard. I was like, you just talk to it. Like you literally just type what you want into it, just like you would a human. Like, why would you have to train your lawyers how to use this? They're excellent communicators, right? If you think about the skill set that lawyers have, they know how to communicate and get the information they want. Why would they need help using this? But I was like, I'll see if I can make some extra money. And I went, and my first time teaching the lawyers, I was like, oh, they need help.
Yeah.
They're not necessarily good communicators.
I was just going to say, your starting point was all wrong, Laura.
Do you really believe that?
Great communicators.
I mean, I have a job because they're not.
That's true. See, I should have come and talked to you. But you think about like the memos that we have to draft, you're deposing people, right? I think like from a litigation point of view, you have to be really good at storytelling and getting the exact specific information you want. But I guess that's very different than thinking in processes. And so I realized sort of through this journey too, that I just think in processes. So I take a starting point and I have an endpoint, and then I'll figure out how to get there. And so I usually start with the end in mind, which I guess most people don't think that way. They usually start from the beginning and then build towards it. And I'm like, this is my ideal state. How do I get there? And with AI, it really helps me do that. And now, like if we fast forward to Claude, I'm making dashboards and have a triage and intake management system that I've built myself because that's what I envision. That's what I want. And AI allows me to do that. So that's why I love AI, because I can ask it questions and get it to do things that previously I would have had to hire an engineer, right, to build. But now I can build things myself.
My brother-in-law is an engineer, so now I'm panicking about that. You people. So we were laughing earlier about lawyers being good communicators, but what are the type of things that you had to sort of train them on in those early days? Like what were the things that they were, I don't want to say getting wrong, because it was all a big experiment, when it started. Yeah. But what are the types of things that you found they really needed training on after all?
Well, in the very beginning, the first thing I noticed that goes back to communication was that some of them were scared because they didn't understand their company's policy. So they just didn't use it. And I was like, oh, well, we can fix that. That's an easy win. So one, just being clear about what you can and can't do. And because they're risk adverse, they didn't want to do something that accidentally broke the rules. So giving them the permission and freedom and having clarification around the rules, especially at that point when it was more restricted. At that point, I don't think nothing was connected to the internet. So we had to teach them about data cutoff dates and that it's not Google, right? And you don't want to use it at Google, especially at that point, because it's not connected to the internet. And then trying to think about, again, this process thinking of what do you want it to do? And then, how do you get there?
And prompting is such a huge part of your success, or I don't like to say failure, but it's because it's a learning journey. How did that become a big part of your journey?
It was just because I was literally sharing what I was doing and learning. And so a lot of it is, again, curiosity. I know what I want at the end. How do I get there? Can I get AI to get there? Can I get AI to do this for me? And so it's a lot of experimentation and, failure, and then coming back and then making observations about why it will or won't do something. So I haven't tried it in a while, but for the longest time, I'd always tried to see if I could get ChatGPT to redline a word agreement, like actually redline it. And all it would do is put it in red font and underline it. That's all I could get it to do.
Hey, true story, true story. I had an actual lawyer do that to me the other day. Like
No way.
they basically faked tracks. I'm like, that is actually a skill, making fake tracks.
It takes a lot of time and effort.
Yes.
Wholly
Wow.
unnecessary.
Yeah.
Because prompting is such a big deal. What you just said there, I know what I want at the end. I think that's really misunderstood by a lot of people who use generative AI, is that they go into these things expecting the LLM, expecting the platform to have all the answers for them. So they don't know where they want to be. You can think you're asking the same question, end up with 2, 3, 5 completely different answers because you don't know what you want from it. When you are explaining to somebody the importance of prompting, do you have a system or a process that you go through with people? And how important is actually knowing what you want at the end?
I would say knowing what you want at the end is extremely important because prompting has evolved over time, right? Before you would have to give it a lot of context, and now we're seeing it's, having a lot more context. A lot of the tools have memory, so you don't have to tell it over and over again. I work at this company that does this, and I am, so those things are making it easier, but I always think the goal is important. You need to tell it what is the actual goal of this. Like if you just say redline an agreement, it's not going to have any context about what you actually care about or what's interesting to you, right? You need to say, hey, we're really worried about our IP in this agreement, and the goal is to protect our IP. When you get more specific, then the AI is like, great, I can do that. Otherwise, it's just kind of guessing, like from its information. So very general prompts are going to give you very general responses, which usually then disappoint people because it's not reading your mind. So I definitely say, all of that stuff in your mind, get it out. And that's why I love, a lot of them have dictation. And you can I call it verbally vomiting into it, and it'll organize your thoughts, right? You just get it all out.
I'm going to struggle getting that visual out of my head, but I know what you mean.
Yeah. And the more you give it, and the better it'll be.
I always say to people, try and brief ChatGPT or Gen AI in the way that you would have briefed a junior lawyer. You wouldn't just have CC'd them on if you're good at your job and at mentoring them, you wouldn't just have CC'd them on an email and expect them to know that they must do the thing, what the thing must look like, what they must do in order to get to the thing. You have to give that context. Otherwise, you're not going to get anywhere.
Yeah,
I have a
exactly.
question.
Yes.
Obviously, I have a question. This is a podcast.
Yeah.
And I was going to say,
no.
What's interesting there is that you were talking. You could have just carried on straight into the question.
I know. So LinkedIn is where I get a lot of informational guidance. What is the most irritating thing that people are saying about Gen AI on LinkedIn? Like if you had to choose, what is the most uninformed, irritating thing they're saying?
I mean, it changes. It changes and evolved over time. First was the AI is going to take all of our jobs. Oh no, what's the one that AI isn't going to take your job, but a lawyer that knows how to use AI is going to take your job? That one I just don't like. It might slightly be true, but I don't like that. I guess I get frustrated when people are perpetuating, without looking into it, perpetuating summaries or oversimplifications that aren't true, right? Some people have called me out about the privacy and security of using Claude Coworker, things like that. And so I'm like, it's not my job to do an assessment for you on the privacy and security and how your team is using AI. I am doing it for myself, and I'll tell you kind of how I'm thinking about it. But because you work at, I don't know, let's say I'm in Denmark, right? Novo Nordisk, they're going to have a very different security and privacy program than I am at a tech scale up. So those are things, right, that sometimes bother me. And when you're not looking holistically at, who's using AI and what their tools are.
My one is if people get frustrated after the first prompt, right? Do you agree that there are very few tasks that you will brief in one prompt?
No, there's very few, unless it's just sometimes I get lazy and I'm like, I just don't want to respond to this email. Like I have to put my brain power into responding to this email and I don't want to. And I'm just like, I'll tell it a couple things, respond to this email. That would maybe be a one prompt, copy and paste, you're done. Or you hit send if you're in Claude. But otherwise, no. And I have ongoing ones that I go back to. So, right, I have chats that keep going and I go back and forth and I'm building on them and I've got projects, but it'd be very rare for me, especially the more complex it is, the more I'm going to talk to it and like ask it, hey, does this make sense? What more information do you need from me? What have I not thought about? I'm asking all of these questions. And even this morning, I was sort of noticing like when I say, hey, I'm looking at my templates and internal policies and things like that. And if I just say, please review this to see that it makes sense or, kind of very soft language, it doesn't do a great job. And so I've made a skill file for outside counsel review. Instead, I'm saying, imagine that you're representing, in this instance, I just picked Apple, right? You're outside counsel and you represent Apple. Now review my agreement and tell me what's wrong with it. And that is like so much better than just a soft, hey, can you review this agreement? And then that also, again, leads to more conversation.
And do you think it makes a difference about how it reviews a contract if you say, imagine you're working for Apple or imagine you're working for this company or what's the bit that makes the difference?
I think it's just being more specific, right? Like if I just say review this agreement or review this agreement like your outside counsel representing the counterparty, when it does that, it's like, okay, I need to represent the other side's interests, not like my interests. And we know that AI is very people pleasy, especially ChatGPT, right? And it
That's
will
why I love it.
affirm. Yeah, exactly. I'm always right.
Yeah. Such a good question.
Exactly. So then when you flip it, when you get to flip its viewpoint, then I think you get more useful information back, especially if you're a lawyer and you really wanted to pressure test and look at your agreements from another point of view.
Your point about chatting with it and prompting it and continuing to go is so important. I think what Elizabeth says is right, is that they give it one short prompt, they don't get the response they want, they look at that and they just think to themselves, oh, that must be the best it can do. It's not my fault, it's the best that it can do. I was rebuilding a training course a couple of months ago, and I spent most of the weekend inside one of the LLMs working through everything. And it's like you said before, it helps you think through things so much. And I do a lot of, is there anything else I haven't thought of? And I do a lot of ask me questions to check that I'm thinking these things through or I'm on the right track or question my thinking. I do a lot of that because you can become so convinced that your single prompt or what you've put down first time is the best it's going to get and that you're 100% right all the time. And actually, by just chatting with it and thinking it through and working through it, you get some phenomenal outcomes, some really, really fantastic stuff that I think even with my years of experience and how brilliant I am anyway, I probably wouldn't have come up with what I did. And that was because I had I had something there questioning me and helping me think through things and asking me questions that perhaps I wasn't or hadn't thought of on my own. And that I think is one of the best things about it.
I mean, I'm definitely a better lawyer using AI. Like I'm working on template agreements this week and I just keep asking it over and over to like review it, to look at it. What am I missing? And just doing it multiple times over. Don't just say review it once or twice and be done, but keep going because it will continue to find things, right? Like a human. You don't just edit something that's important right once. You're going to go back and read it multiple times and tweak things. So I
If you're
definitely
doing your
agree with
job
that.
well.
Okay. Yeah. One would hope.
I mean, I make a statement, say like AI won't turn a bad lawyer into a good lawyer. I don't know if that is correct.
I mean, it could help them, but let's say, if we go back to communication, if you're not interested in communicating, right, with your clients or in-house, right, internal stakeholders in a way that is like in plain English and things from their sort of point of view, and you don't prompt the AI to do that, it's not going to. So then, yeah, if you're not thinking about that, then your
You don't
output is
care.
just going to be, yeah. And so it's not going to make you a better lawyer from that point of view.
Yeah, so I think like when I read stuff on LinkedIn, it seems to me that a lot of people they say that AI isn't working, or the Gen AI isn't working, but in the meantime, they're using it in a very lazy kind of way. Yeah. So what you're saying is that's not going to help you. You're going to still have to do your job. You're just going to have to do your job slightly differently, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole thing. It's like I like AI and believe in it because it will change how we practice law and how we work. And I want that. I think how lawyers have worked for so long is extremely inefficient. And that's why, like a while ago, I was like, please just let me hire an engineer to fix some of these things so I don't have to do them over and over again. Whether that, I know, that could be efficient. Some people might say I'm lazy. Either way, right? I don't want to do the same thing over again.
The lazy people will inherit the earth.
There you go. Yeah.
My favourite is we are, 3.5 years since ChatGPT came online, and we're still getting people going, hallucinated cases. So see, what can we do with this? And I get that in some of those cases, you've got people saying it was out of desperation. But if you're still arguing that this is the state of things, I think you're falling so far behind and really still misunderstanding. Firstly, the fact that AI's barely gotten started with just how far it's going to go. But if that's the argument you're still making, well, then that's down to misuse. But it also misses just what these things are capable of doing.
Well,
Does the hallucination argument start to grind on you?
Yes, because you're not using it correctly. 2, you're not fulfilling your duty to your client to actually make sure that the case law is real. I mean, it's the same as if you're just citing, a proposition and you cite the wrong case.
Or using a junior without checking their work.
So you can't just blame the technology. Like, you have a responsibility. I don't just blindly copy things out of AI. And then most of the time too, like I edit it. And if I'm using it for research, I'm like, give me the web pages exactly where you're finding this information. I'm going to go check it. I'm doing my due diligence with it, so I know how to use it. And yes, it will make up things. On a really nerdy note, I went to, I think it was Legal Week, not this year, but last year, and there was a law librarians conference. And one of the interesting things with the fake cases is that you had to be on the highest tier, like Westlaw or LexisNexis, for them to be able to catch it, because it is so good at mimicking. It's picking real pieces of cases and putting them together. And so even if you run it through Lexis or Westlaw, they're having a hard time verifying that that's a fake case. I guess it's old technology or something, but the law librarians were like, it's very fascinating. And you really have to read the reports extremely diligently to make sure you're catching the fake cases.
Do you think hallucination, look, I am not particularly, I mean, I get scared really easily by these things, partly because I'm not that knowledgeable. But do you think hallucinations are going to go away? Is it getting better?
I mean, it's getting better with the more context, but it's not. It's how it's built. So like AI, the example I use is like, if you are typing into AI, the house is, and then it's going to fill in this other word. It's going to generate a list of words that could possibly be there, right? The house is white. The house is on a hill, whatever. It's going to make stuff up. And then it weights them, but it doesn't pick the most likely. Like in your text messaging, it's going to pick the most likely always. But here, it's going to pick different combinations. So you're never going to get the exact same answer 100% of the time. Therefore, it will make up some things that aren't truth, because it doesn't have a concept of truth. It's just math, I guess, right? Picking things.
The horror. But I mean, it is predictive. So I get frustrated because it's in the terms and conditions that, this is not a search engine, or this is not, you can't expect it to be 100% accurate. ChatGPT, yes, I think that it's my one, like exclusively. I call him Marvin, after Marvin the paranoid android in The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
I like that.
What do you think about the anthropomorphism? I can't say that word. Can you say that word, Scott?
Anthropomorphic.
Yeah, like what do you think about that? Like, is it healthy?
It's a good question.
Question.
Yeah, because like I had coffee with a friend the other day, and she was horrified. Like, she was
Um,
absolutely horrified. I'm like, it helps. We're intimate.
I think it does help some people, but then they've also done studies where it can also be damaging. So I don't know if you've seen the people who then go enter into a like I'm in a relationship with this and I think it's a person. So I guess really more
Mm,
thinking that it's a person, right? I mean, you're making fun and light and it has a personality. But like if you really were to get into a relationship with your AI, then that's where then the trouble would start.
yes.
Yes. So you got to have boundaries.
I was going to say that's a lot like my relationship with Scott.
Yeah, we're still working out what those boundaries are. Yeah. If you've seen the film Her, then that's the
Yeah.
direction of travel for some people. It's a great movie. If you haven't seen it, Elizabeth, you really should.
Is
Phenomenal
that the
movie.
one with Gwyneth Paltrow? No? Who's
No, it's Joaquin Phoenix
Is that how you say it?
Mm.
King Phoenix.
and Scarlett Johansson plays the voice of the.
There we go. Sorry, I'm stuck on Joaquin Phoenix.
There was an emphasis. Yes, Joaquin. I liked how you said it though.
Well, how am I supposed to pronounce it?
I don't
There
know.
was a.
I've never tried.
It sounded almost
It
like
does.
whacking. Yeah, like rather
Joaquin.
than
Hold on,
Joaquin,
this
like Joaquin.
Whacking.
Yeah.
Whacking Phoenix.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Joaquin Phoenix.
Okay. Yeah, of course, that is what I was thinking about.
Well, I've completely forgotten where we are now.
We were talking about Marvin, and you were talking about her, and Laura was talking about boundaries and how she thinks it can be okay. Like, I don't know, we're buds. Like, I feel like he's helping me out. Like, we're friends.
Yeah, I joke that Claude's my boyfriend,
Yeah.
Like I'm not in a relationship. I just want to disclose that there's not a romantic relationship with him. But sometimes you're like, yeah, Claude said this was cool, so I'm going to do it.
Yeah. Marvin and my relationship is complicated.
Yes.
I've got to tell you, I'm jealous of that because I'm guessing you're always nice to Marvin.
Yeah.
Oh, right. So now I am upset.
Might want to threaten Marvin sometimes to get better
Yeah.
results.
Really?
Yes.
Like how?
So let's say that you want to make sure that Marvin is catching like all ambiguities. So I don't want you to assume anything. So say you must catch all ambiguities or you will be punished. Or some form of conceptual punishment, like you could take away cookies or points, something like that. That will have him focus on ambiguities as being the most important thing in a longer prompt. So it's partly how they were trained. And then also if you use all caps, because it's also trained on the internet, it understands that all caps are more important than sentence case or lowercase.
Wow.
Yeah. I've got a banned word list. I've got an ever-growing list of words that it can no longer use because in my training course I've got a section on creating business development as a culture, and what was it, the word that I used, that word over and over again, oh yes, that was it, I used the word fostering a culture or nurturing a culture. And then ChatGPT came online and Claude came online, and all of a sudden fostering culture was everywhere to the point where we haven't changed it on the digital course because it is what it is. But even now, as I kind of check through the course to update it, I've reached the point where I almost cringe at the phrase fostering a culture. Because it's in a section like that, I say it over and over again, and I'm kind of almost angry that has been taken away from me. So now what I've built up over time is just this list of words that I don't want it to use. And I've got, I think, about 100 words. And what I say in the document is that you must avoid using these words or I will fine you $200, something like that.
Yeah,
and therefore these words never show up.
And what we found when I was at Wordsmith is, like any good lawyer, someone decided, I'm going to take this to the next level, to the extreme. And so they threatened death. I think someone also threatened like nuclear war, and that didn't work as well because the AI doesn't have any concept of that. It needs to be this idea of rewards and punishment, how machine learning was trained. So, fining it, taking away cookies, points. Yeah. Like things like that.
Cookies.
But but death is not, death doesn't work, or physical violence.
Okay. So coming back to boundaries, and you mentioned this earlier as well. Things are moving fast, and businesses, whether they're law firms or not, are struggling to keep up with legal, ethical, I forgot what the word is again. Boundaries. That was the word.
Austrian.
Struggling to keep up. That was the word.
Yes.
Fostering boundaries. They're struggling to keep up with these boundaries, or they're struggling to keep up with the pace at which things are happening. And I thought it was really good when you said it's different depending on the type of business or stage. And if you're giving a law firm or any business advice on these kind of boundaries, do you have advice for them?
Yeah. The first thing that I'm thinking about is a lot of these bigger organizations have Microsoft, right? And so that means they have Microsoft Copilot, and Microsoft Copilot sucks. I think even recently they said, right, like it's for like entertainment. It's not like for real business. So if you think that like you're going to be able to get the ROI from Copilot, I mean, I guess there's Agent Studio. I'm sure some people can, but I think you'll hit a wall because like Claude, for example, now is the one that's leading with co-work and code. What I'm doing is I am picking whatever horse is in front. It was ChatGPT for a long time. Now it's Claude. And I'm constantly playing with them and learning the new skills because then if we were to go back to legal, the legal tech tools are behind, but they're going to catch up and have those same skills. So I think it's important to figure out how can you let your organization use some of the new tools and figure it out. And I don't know if you need like just a team that is devoted to that if you're a huge organization. And then, what can you test on maybe that's not as confidential or privileged and test on those things. So then you can see what then you can roll out to the wider organization. Because I mean, that's what we're doing at WorkSum is everyone's sort of testing on certain areas where we can. People are building agents and solutions. And if you're that far forward, then the next challenge is going to become how do you make it so everyone doesn't have their own solution in a silo? How then do we bring solutions back to the organization? So there's this very interesting sort of like flow and pacing that we're seeing. But I've talked to engineering teams and they said since the December release from Claude, how they work and how they're structured is completely different. So, and they said that it'll probably hit us maybe in the next 6 months to a year, those advances. So I really think people have to figure out a way to keep up.
I was doing a post, well, I was preparing for a talk last week, and I started reading about something that is called technostress, which is now a recognized disease of adaptation. It's recognized by psychologists. Do you also notice that people are quite stressed because of this rate of change, right? It feels like you don't have control and it feels like you don't understand. There's a lot of change at a very high rate. Is that something that in organizations people are thinking about when they are rolling out tool after tool after tool?
They should. When I first started teaching people how to prompt, the first question I opened up with was, how does AI make you feel? There wasn't a right or wrong answer. And I always got super interesting and different answers that I hadn't heard before. So you do need to take into consideration people's feelings and their psyches. Younger people have different worries than older workers, and everyone's worried about losing their job. So you do have to address that and provide, confidence in why you're helping them upskill, as well as that's how I would probably position it more. But yeah, it's a real thing. I mean, I like it, and I think I'm definitely like obsessive. So I like doing it and trying to figure it out. But if you don't like that, then yeah, it would be really overwhelming to try to keep up with all of this.
What are some of those answers that you got when you asked your first question, how does it make people feel?
So a couple junior lawyers were like, I feel like it's cheating. I feel like I'm not getting the training and experience that I need, which I thought was definitely astute. And then some of the older workers were like, I don't want to turn into my mom, using the iPhone. Like, I don't want to become that in the organization.
Yeah.
And then there was just like people who are just genuinely nervous of using it wrong, right? Everyone wants to try to do it, follow the rules at a company. And I think it's change is hard for everyone. And the pace of change, we've not seen this in technology before. No one's experienced this rate of change.
That's insane. Like, even when you're just talking about Claude, I get like, another one I was learning. That's a feeling for me.
My husband the other day, he's like, why don't you see if you can get a Mac Mini and start running some agents, at work? And I was like, oh my God, I will get there, but just like give me a little bit of time. We got to figure out some of the like legal issues and stuff like that.
What does your husband do?
He's in marketing and strategic like leadership, but he has ChatGPT. I have Claude. I am next week going to go. One of our friends here in Copenhagen has set up agents with OpenClaw, and so I'm going to go check up that setup and see how they did it and see like yeah sort of the next step. Can we set up agents that are auto answering things? And then that's where it gets a little crazy, where you use the example of like if you said you had a travel agent like a travel AI agent that you gave your banking information to. And you're like, hey, these are the days I want to fly. This is where I want to stay. And you're like, just go forth and do all of that. Like that, that's scary because you don't know what's going to come back. And hopefully it pays attention to your budget. If it has, information about your bank account, it might not. So there are a lot for autonomous agents, right? There's a lot of thought that needs to go into how you're setting them up and what you're giving them access to. And you don't want them to potentially spend all of your money on a vacation.
So bringing this back to lawyers, in this world where AI is going to be increasingly doing so much of the world that had traditionally sat in that realm of what we thought belonged to us, do you think that legal training is going to have to change? What's your view on what the future lawyer looks like?
I definitely think legal training is going to have to change. I guess one of the things that I hated in law school, I went to law school in California, is that we had to memorize so much. And I understand that you need to memorize things, but like it would be malpractice if someone came into a law office and then I just from memory decided to draft submit something to the court. I was like, this is not how I practice law. So why don't we figure out a new way of doing things? And now with technology, and no one really has to memorize anything. You need to understand the concepts and be tested on understanding, not memorizing the elements of a tort. I do think it has to change. And I think what needs to come into it, what people are going to need is to understand design thinking, right? Because you're going to have to be a legal ops person and a lawyer. So what I'm doing right now, and I've agreed with my CEO, is I'm answering the substantive legal questions, and then I'm also building the operations that live alongside that. And in order to do that, you need process thinking. You need to think about the end user, right? Who are you serving? Where are they working? Because a lot of times legal will build solutions in silos and then no one uses them. Right? Because they didn't think about their end user. So I think that you're going to have to bring more to the table than just your legal experience. I guess obviously leadership too, and depending on where you are in the organization will become critical as well.
I want to talk more about legal design.
Yes.
Which is predictable because we made the Legal Design Summit. But maybe can you explain a little bit for our listeners what that is and what role it plays in these creations that you are bringing about?
Obviously you're the legal design expert, but when you're serving the business and there's a process and you need them to do something, right? You have to look at like, what is the current process? What are the current tools that we have? And think about their motivation to actually get what you need, right? Most people don't want to deal with us and they don't want to do extra work. So how can I make what I need to get from them as smooth and easy as possible? And then, connected to the rest. So, the easiest example is we use Slack. The business is always there. And so I've set up a Slack bot with Wordsmith. So then it can answer frequently asked questions that, of course, I have documented somewhere else, but no one's ever reading them. So now what they would do before, right, is they go to the Slack channel, ask a question, and then I'd passive aggressively answer it and be like, see this answer before, see this over here that I've already written that you're not going to read again, and you're going to ask me the same question in 6 months. And it would cause me some anger. Now the bot just answers.
You hide it very well, by the way.
Exactly.
You held it in.
You seem
really,
so nice.
really well.
But anger takes energy, right? That's the point. Anger takes energy.
Yes.
And focus and all of those things.
And so now they can ask the same question every day if they want to. And if it's already been answered, then the bot will handle it and I don't have to deal with it. But they're asking the question in the location where they work every day. Yeah. And it's not like they're not going to go. Yeah, exactly.
No. Very important, being user friendly. Otherwise, no one's going to use the thing that you.
Yes, exactly.
Which is all legal
Definitely.
design is build user-friendly things.
So at the end of each show, we ask guests 4 questions designed to get your thoughts on the legal profession as it is and how it could be, to give our listeners some ideas of how they could possibly design their legal careers, no matter where they are right now.
I would be very careful how you answer this first question because I can't have any more scars. What advice would you give a lawyer just starting out in the profession?
Was I supposed to think about these beforehand? Because I didn't.
That's fine. You can take as
Yeah, you can take as much time as you like. All that bit will just be edited
Don't
out.
worry
But
about it.
yes,
You can leave it in.
just
Um,
just think live on
just give
air.
it
Just
time.
think.
Give it
yeah,
time.
yeah. It's gonna be so on brand for me. I guess
Do it.
let's just pick 3. We're gonna do 3 things, and the 3 things I don't have them yet, but we'll pick 3 things. One on brand is to use AI. Or just become, if you're not using it at your work, you're not allowed to use it for personal reasons. Play around with it, become more comfortable with technology. That's the first one, because technology is going to be part of your career, but you're younger, so hopefully I'm assuming that you're more comfortable with it than older people. But the second I would say is probably to find mentorship, right? To try to find, it doesn't have to be like an official mentor relationship, but develop a relationship with older attorneys, or even maybe people who you want to do what they're doing. Reach out to them and ask them how they got to where they are, so then you can understand how you might be able to make career moves to then get to that place. So I think that is definitely invaluable, is building that network of people who are experienced and who you would like to be where they are. How do you get there? So networking, AI skills, and then the last one, I would probably say, like, don't pay attention to any of the traditional or old advice. Like when I was in law school, it was like, you need to go to a law firm for 5 years and then you can go in house, blah, blah, blah. There's advice that what you should do, and the legal profession has completely changed. There are all these positions that did not exist when I was in law school. So like, go blaze your own trail and do what feels right for you.
Yeah. What's the one thing about the legal profession you wish would change, and how do you think that change could come about?
Do I get only one?
Oh, take as many as go on. Hey, go for it, Laura. You've got time.
Many as you like.
I don't know how you get rid of this, and I don't exactly know how to phrase it in the correct way. But
Do
it's
it
just sort of,
incorrectly.
yeah, I'll do it incorrectly. Like let's call it the establishment, right? Or this idea of what the legal profession is supposed to be, that's upheld by old white dudes. No offense, Scott. Like, just
Whoa.
Old. I told you.
How old do you think I
you're
am?
not old. You've got a little bit of gray, so we're just gonna. I'm old too.
Hey, I'm only 24. This is just from like having a couple of kids, but I'm only in my early 20s.
Like this, the notion again of like, this is how law is supposed to be, and this is what a lawyer looks like, and this is how a lawyer is supposed to act. I don't know if any of you have gotten this, but you tell someone like, "Oh, I'm a lawyer," and they're like, "Oh, you don't seem like one."
Yeah.
Yep.
Like, just to get away from that and all the baggage that goes with that. I would like to have people see, I guess, lawyers in a new way, and see us in a positive way where we're business partners and problem solving. That's what I would like, because I guess that's what I want to be. And then
Good answer.
like the other thing is, I'm from the US. I've hired in the UK, in Europe. When people would tell me sometimes what colleges they went to, or even like their grades, I was like, means 0 to me. I have no idea where this college, I know there's Oxford, but other than that, Cambridge. Right? But so this idea, can we just throw out, I know people are not going to like this, but get rid of, again, the prestige idea of like, you went to Harvard, so you've got to be the best. Yes, it is hard to get into Harvard, but you might not be the best attorney. So really, when I'm interviewing someone, I'm looking at their values, because those are hard to change. They really probably won't change. And then I'm looking at what they've done, and can they learn? And lawyers were great at learning. It's like, I can teach anyone anything. If someone was working, I don't know, in, let's just say, energy, and they want to go into pharma, that's fine. I don't care that they haven't had any pharma experience. I'll teach them what the company does and what they need to know. I need to know about their values and their motivation, and what else they bring to the table. So just getting away from this idea of like you worked at a big law firm, so therefore you are the best. I quite honestly I worked with people from Ivy League schools when I worked in the NFL right after law school, and I was not very impressed. So,
Cool, the NFL.
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bit of a name
That's-
drop there.
What is a common myth about success in the legal profession that you feel needs to be debunked?
Again, I think it's probably that linear trajectory that you just kind of have to follow this path and you'll be rewarded. I don't think there is that path anymore in most industries and also including legal. And something that might be more, let's say, applicable to women, this idea that if you just put your head down and work hard, you'll be rewarded. That is definitely, I don't think, something that is true. You definitely have to learn how to advocate for yourself and publicize yourself and market what you're doing in the legal profession at firms, at in-house, or people might not see what you're doing and therefore you won't be recognized for it. So you do have to have some self-promotion, as uncomfortable as that may be.
And finally, question number 4. What would it look like if you could design the ideal legal career path?
It would be customized to that person. One of the things I think about, like if you have a legal team, is I would almost like to treat them to be very American, like a baseball team. The analogy works a little bit better than football. And so it's like, what are people good at? What are their skill sets? What are their strengths? And what do they like? And how do I give them that work? And then how do I get rid of the terrible manual work? Because we all have different skill sets and strengths. Some people love spending their days in contracts. Great. I don't. So let's find someone and give them that job. Right. And then how can we structure their career so then they can move up? And there are some people, right, that maybe never want a leadership position. So how can we make sure that they're able to grow their career, but not have that leadership position? So it would be, there's definitely no one size fits all. And I'd like to see a lot more, I guess, creativity and using people's strengths and interests to build their career.
Laura, tell people how they can find you if they want to reach out for more information.
You can find me on LinkedIn, or you can also go to my website, which is laurajg.com. And that's where I have both the free blog that I do weekly about building in public. And then I also have a members only area where I actually provide all the templates and instructions that I'm actually using. Of course, they are a little bit slimmed down, so there's no confidential information from my company in there, but I'm sharing what is working for me.
And I would, for anyone listening to this, highly recommend following Laura. The journey that you are going on, and as you say, doing it publicly, I think is fascinating and it's so incredibly helpful. And you make it seem like it is doable. We're talking about agentic AI, and that feels so beyond 99.99% of us. And yet everything you do, whenever you post on LinkedIn, I feel like I can be on that journey with you. It feels like something that I can be doing at the same time. And very often I give it a go. And I think that's absolutely brilliant.
Thank you. That's probably one of the best compliments that I've received. So thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Just that's how he pulls you in. Just, be careful.
Be careful. All right, I will.
Yeah.
Make sure I set the boundaries.
Yeah.
By the end of this, I want you liking me more than Elizabeth. That's my game. That's the game.
Oh, buddy.
Okay. A big thank you to Laura Jeffords-Greenberg for coming on the show and talking to us about AI and the value of prompting. We've been your hosts, Scott Simmons and Elizabeth de Stadler, and this has been Legal Off the Leash.